Hello, my name is Wale Akinyemi, and I like to be called a passionate African because I love to challenge the way people think. I'm a publisher. I started off as an author. I'm an author of 32 books on leadership. I'm a publisher, and I also run a consulting firm.
Hello everyone, welcome back to yet another episode of the Make It Easy podcast. My name is Shalomeli, and today we are joined by our wonderful voice in this country and beyond, Dr. Wale Akinyemi. How are you doing?
I'm very well. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you for coming. So before we get into our conversation today, I have 5 icebreaker questions.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. Number 1, what is your ideal way of spending a free day?
Free day.
Yeah.
Wow, I like to just think, do nothing, think, watch a comedy. Now, the kind of things I watch either something that will make me laugh or something that will inspire me.
All right.
The men who built America.
Yes.
Then I do a lot of documentaries.
That's on free day.
Yeah.
Oh wow, interesting. For me, just watching movies or probably sleeping.
That's a good one too.
Yeah. All right. Number 2. What is a mindset shift that has changed you? What mindset shift that you have that has changed you?
That it does not matter. The Bible talks of the mustard seed.
Yeah.
It's the smallest of seeds and becomes the biggest of trees. So how you start is irrelevant. You can become the biggest.
Yeah. Wow, love it. I think for me is that everything you grow up on, you just have to find a way. There's always a way to find.
Absolutely.
So it's for you to have and find out that way to find it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Number 3, what is one food you could eat repeatedly without getting tired?
Jollof rice and plantain.
Jollof rice.
Yes.
For me to be fish. I love
Jollof
fish.
rice. Jollof.
Anytime, any day. Breakfast, supper.
Everett.
Yeah. We should have jollof rice anytime. All right, the next one. What is a city or a country that you think everyone should experience?
I think now, I'm going to say this, and you're not going to like what I'm going to say.
Okay, let's hear it.
I think everybody should experience Kenya.
Yeah, but I actually wanted to say Kenya. That's very.
I think everybody should experience Kenya because Kenya provides a uniqueness that other countries don't have, and I believe that even where Africa is concerned, Kenya is going to lead the way. Why? Because and this I say this to Kenyans all the time. That when you're in a plane that's going really fast, you're sitting inside the plane. You don't know how fast it's going. But people who come from outside, they appreciate how fast it's going. Kenya is that country. When you look at the greatest civilizations in history, what did they have in common? They were places where people could come from every part of the world, settle, become citizens, and grow, give birth, grow. No country has that in Africa like Kenya does.
Wow. Kenya too.
Kenya.
Wow. Amazing. And the last question. What is one thing in life that brings you a lot of joy?
My grandchildren.
Your grandchildren. Oh, wow.
They're the ones that made me grand.
Yeah.
Wow. Anytime I just see them and I'm happy. Family generally is what does it for me.
Right.
But then when the grandchildren began to come, it's a whole new level.
You love it.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's so nice. For me, just family, I think it's kind of family. That's really
Yeah.
Yeah, you're done. We did well. You're done there.
Thank you.
Now let's get right into the conversation. So the conversation is titled moving from action to impact. Ideally, this season we'll be talking about how can we move from being planners to people who practice, because we start the year very strong. You have visions, you have plans for the year, but so many people don't get to outline it. But then there's also another second aspect to it. You can be doing a lot of things, but there's little to no impact to what you do. So that's what I want to talk about, especially in regards to young people. How can we just move from doing things, owning a business, doing this career, but then there's no impact first. So how can we, first question would be, how can we move from just being busy to realizing that this is something that I need to do to make an impact to someone's life?
Well, first of all, we need to define what do we mean by impact? An impact is different for different people. For me, making an impact is challenging the way people think and the way people see life. That's making an impact. For me, making an impact is that when you meet Wale, there's a before Wale and an after Wale story. All right. For me, that's what making an impact is. So it's important that you identify what does impact mean for you. Then the second thing, you see, life is in phases. And I'll break that down. The first phase of life, I call it the phase of adventure. When we're young, we try this, we try that, we're adventurous. Some of us, that was the age where we tried alcohol, tried smoking, tried, you know. Now, but after the age of adventure, then you transit into the age of discovery. The age of discovery is when you identify the things you don't like. The Bible says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. But another verse says, all things are lawful, not all things are expedient. So the fact that I can do it doesn't mean I should do it. So the age of discovery is when you begin to identify, okay, I can do this, but I don't really want to do that because this is not taking me. Then the next phase is the phase of focus. That is the phase where you have identified what you don't want. Now, in the age of discovery, one very important thing that happens there is you may not know exactly what you want, but you know with certainty what you don't want. All right? And that's also a good way to do it through peeling, a lot of young people are saying, oh, I don't know my calling, I don't know my purpose, I don't know. Fine. Do you know what you don't want? As you begin to peel, as you begin to peel it, as you begin to peel what you don't want, you will be left with that one thing. So that happens, so age of adventure, age of discovery, age of focus. Now, the age of focus is where impact begins to happen. Because you cannot make impact doing so many things at the same time. And one of the things about a lot of young people is, like you said, and whenever I see people who, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I know that's still the age of adventure. It's still the age of adventure. Because when you hit that frequency of focus, you are so excited and consumed about that thing. My grandmother calls it her little thing.
Yeah.
You identify that thing, every other thing becomes irrelevant. And it is when you hit that age of focus that impact begins to happen. And it is that impact that now defines legacy. So when I hit my age of focus, I have done everything.
Yeah.
I have sold cars. I have sold mangoes. I have sold real estate.
Yeah.
I was an agent for Motorola. I've sold gold. I've sold jewelry. I've been there, done that. I have done music production. I produced albums. I've produced, I've been there. I've written plays, been there. But then, as I began to advance and got to that age of, discovery, I realized, I can do all these things. But the one that really does it for me, and this is important. I know young people, and people always say, follow your passion. Follow your passion. But I think differently because I am very passionate musician.
Okay.
I'm a very passionate person in all those other things. But those things were not going to take me to where I saw myself.
Okay.
I saw myself, being a consultant for the United Nations. I saw myself being a consultant for the biggest companies in the world. There was only one path that was going to take me there. And that was, let me focus on developing people. Let me focus on information, processing it, and disseminating it. And, let me process on finding solutions for organizations, for people. So when I identified, that became, my era of focus, it was easy to let all the others go. Now, as I continued and I zeroed in on that one, that is why when you look at what I do, I'm consulting, working with companies, working with leaders, writing books. It's all the same thing.
Okay.
It's all the same thing. And then that now opens doors. So a lot of those things that I was doing before, now I can take them up as hobbies. You understand? So I still do music, but as a hobby. I do all this as hobbies, but it's very important. And, some of us stumbled into these things by accident. But I believe as, people know this, you are able to identify where you are. That adventure is characterized by doing so many things. Discovery is characterized by peeling off layers, that it's not everything I can do that I'm going to do. Then focus, that thing that stood out in the age of discovery, I focus on it. As I focus on that, that is where I begin to make impact. Nobody heard about me when I was playing or doing all those other things. But when I focused, then suddenly people say, oh, you have changed my life. All right? So I hope.
I love it. I love it. You've answered it very profoundly. And I think it also spills over to the next question I have for you. Because as young people, we get to find that we love visibility. We love being known as the person who does so and so, or the person who is behind this company. This is the young person behind this. So is it possible to be successful publicly but ineffective privately?
Oh, that's a very good question. I'll tell you about that. So, this thing about, we should not get sucked up in this crave for wanting to be seen.
Yeah.
Many years ago, another thing I was doing, I was developing websites. Okay. So I was knocking on doors looking for who I could do websites for. And I finally stumbled on this. I faced rejection. People kicked me out. And it was back in the day, man.
Yeah.
My shoes were very holy. That means they had holes, They were dusty. They were holy. Some guys were just driving me away.
Yeah.
So one guy, an Italian guy, he saw me and I think he just liked me. And we sat down and he said, you can do websites? Yeah. I had just learned how to code.
To do website,
Do code. I had just learned it.
Okay.
So, yeah. It was a restaurant. So he said, what kind of websites can you do? I had never done any. What kind of websites can you do? So I went online and I showed him some fancy restaurants. Said, I can do that. Yeah. He said, so how much are you going to charge? Now, because I've never done it before, I don't know how much
it's charged. Yeah.
But there's another thing. I said, I have to consult and I will get back to you tomorrow. You know why that was important? Because if people are in a hurry to bring out a card and say, Wale, managing director, website. Now, he looks at that card, managing director, he looks at you and say, if you are the final authority in this company, I'm out of here. So until the substance can match the hype, it's good to hide.
Yes.
You understand what I'm saying?
Okay.
It's good to stay under, build inside, build internally to the point where you won't have to shout it. It will speak for itself. The Bible says, write the vision. At the end, it will speak for itself.
Wow, I love it. I love it. The problem now comes, Dr. Wale, when now your works are speaking for itself, and sometimes it can get into our heads. It can get you can get to feel like, now I know I'm the person. I'm the guy they call when they need this website to be fixed. I'm the guy they call when they need this problem to be fixed. how do we still remain to have a posture of humility whilst all this is now coming into fruition?
Very simple. There are people who know more than you,
Okay.
who have not achieved what you have achieved.
Okay.
And then there are people
Mm-hmm.
that know far less than you know, and they are far ahead of you. So you always think that, say that. But for me, the biggest grounding revelation is this. I call it the advantage of birth. I have shared this, and my children, they've grown up knowing this. And that is, one day I was in the car and I told my driver, there was a guy, at the side of the road, you know, just lying at the side of the road, dirty and all that. And I told my driver, I said, the only difference between me and that guy is the advantage of birth. You see, there are certain things because of the environment in which I was born. There are certain things, in that environment that have given me an advantage in life. Simple. I was born in an environment where they could send me to school, so I know how to read. Advantage. All right. Then the schools I went to met certain things advantage. So I told my children that. And that is one thing that will keep anyone grounded, that you're not all that. The difference between you and the homeless is an advantage you had nothing to do with. All right? And even no matter where you are, how successful you are, there are going to be advantages that, you meet somebody. I've met people that just that interaction with that person changed my life. That was an advantage. I met people that poured their wisdom into me, mentored me. That was an advantage. It gave me an advantage over people who did not have that opportunity. So to stay grounded is always remember you are not all that.
You're not all
There are
that.
people who are better than you, who have not attained what you've attained. There are people who don't know a tenth of what you know. They are way ahead of you. And then there is the advantage of birth.
Wow, I love it. I'm curious to know, Dr. Wale, if you were to go back in your 20s, is there anything you'll have done differently?
Too much.
Let's
I
hear
even wrote
it.
a whole book about that.
Okay.
Yes, I wrote a book, Deja Vu, talking to my younger self.
Yeah.
I would have worked more and subjected myself more to apprenticeship, working in a very strict corporate environment. I would have done that.
Why is that?
Because I had to learn a lot of things by experiment.
Okay.
But if I had opportunity to learn it under someone, it would have made my trip faster.
Okay.
I would have learned. There's a gift I have, and recently I asked my children. I said, "What is the biggest lesson you've learned from me?" And my daughter, said that whenever you get into a corner, you create a product that gets you out. I am very gifted in coming up with concepts and making money. For me, you talk of things that make me happy. Anybody that says money doesn't make you happy doesn't have any. The thrill that I can think of something.
Yeah.
And you talked of action. I can think of it. I can execute it. And it will generate money for me. And that has been my story since childhood. I started my first business, I was less than 10 years old.
What was it about?
I was selling firewood.
Okay. Wow.
Then I sold mangoes. We had a big mango tree in the house. And in fact, we had many mango trees because my parents lived in this, it was a huge expanse.
Yeah.
And we had all these ripe mangoes. So our gardener had a son. The son was called Jakub. So I called Jakub and I said, I was less than 10.
Okay.
Get those mangoes. So he will climb, shake the tree,
Pick
it
the
will rain
mangoes.
mangoes. He will pick them. I told him how to clean them and pack them. Then Yakub will stand on the road every day and sell those mangoes. In the evening, he will bring the mangoes to me and I will give him a commission.
Wow.
I was less than 10.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when it was later on I discovered that's what's called entrepreneurship. Okay? So I've done that. I've sold newspapers. I mean, my mom used to say, well, you can sell sand in the desert. You know?
Sand in the desert.
That was me. So because, and this is the point I'm making,
Yeah.
because I was so gifted in making money, I didn't think there was a need to learn how to manage money. You get it?
I get you.
So my philosophy was simple. If the money finish, make more.
As simple as that.
And it worked for me.
Yeah.
But you get to a stage, you realize, that if you are making 1,000,000 shillings a week and you need that money, then you are living from hand to mouth, no matter how much you make. If I had someone to teach me that, it should have made my life easier.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a very good take. Dr. Wale, we speak of influence in this generation, influence, which is is the elephant in the room. How then does healthy influence look like, especially in this generation that is very woke, quote unquote?
Simple. You model it.
Mm-hmm. How do you model?
You model it.
Okay.
Be the best version of yourself. Make sure that your values,
Mm-hmm.
are values that that you would not mind somebody copying. Um, let me give you a story. I've had many opportunities to do, many opportunities. I'm exposed to a lot of things in different countries.
Okay.
And you have opportunities to compromise. But why would I say no to corruption and stuff? It's very simple. Because I have said yes to something else.
Okay.
I said yes to being a great husband, to being a great father to my children, now a great grandfather to my grandchildren, to be a great mentor to all the people that look up to me. I've said yes to that. When your yes is strong enough, then your no will be easy. You see, positive influence comes from what you have said yes to. And until you identify, what am I saying yes to? Then you just be a speculator.
Yeah.
And you're open, all sorts of, and you become very vulnerable to all sorts of ideas and supposedly woke things. But when you have said yes, define your yes very well. That I want to be this kind of father. I want to be this kind of person in the society. I want to be known for this. I want to be somebody whose name can open doors for others. I want to be somebody who's respected and all that. You define it and then you make sure that everything you're doing is geared in that direction. That now what that does, you become an influencer, not by name, but by person, by who you are. Your very person begins to influence. So I meet people that I have never met before, and they will tell me stories of how they have been following me for years, and it has affected how they think and how they behave. And that's what gets me excited. There's a story in the Bible of the fig tree. Jesus saw the fig tree, and from afar, it looked like it had fruit. But when he got closer to it, it did not have fruit. And that's how a lot of people are. I said, I don't want to be that kind of person. There are people that from afar, on social media and all that, they look like they have substance. But when you get close to them, you're like, wow, what is this?
Yeah.
And so my mantra has always been, or my belief has always been, the substance must be exponentially greater than the hype. What does that mean? That means people may have read about you, they may have watched you, but when they meet you, they should be able to say what the Queen of Sheba said when she met Solomon, that I have heard so much about you, but nothing compares with meeting you physically.
Wow, that's so profound. I love it. And even as we come to a wrap up of this conversation, as young people, there's this thing known as the hustle culture, where we keep on just, doing things. And sometimes in the process of wanting to make impact, or in the process of doing these things, the results don't come immediately. You keep on putting in the work, you keep on putting in the work, you keep on remaining faithful, but the results are not giving in. What do you do? How do you stay faithful in a season where you feel like, I'm really giving this thing my all, I'm really giving this business my all, this career my all, but I'm not seeing the results? What helps you? Or have you, first of all, ever found yourself in such a situation? Tell us about it.
Oh, yeah. You know, success is the result of compounding effort.
Yeah.
What do I mean? You may start right now. And I wrote an article on LinkedIn. I don't know if you saw it. It was, where are you rushing to?
Mm-hmm.
Because I meet young people who say, oh, all my mates, they've done great things. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Look at me. Then I say, okay, these your mates. Who are they? Oh, Mark Zuckerberg. I said, my friend, come back to earth. You know? But you see, success is the produce of compounding effort.
Mm-hmm.
You have to do it. You have to keep at it.
Mm.
It is consistency that produces. It is not initiating
Mm-hmm.
that produces.
Yeah.
It is consistency over time. And why does that happen? You see, consistency over time is what builds understanding. It's what builds knowledge. It's what builds character. You know? So for every young person, I say, you start. What happens is many people start, then when it's not working, they back off, then they go and start again somewhere. And then the cycle has to repeat itself. But remember where we started: adventure, discovery, focus, impact, legacy.
Mm.
Once you have identified that place, you stay there.
Mm.
My story:
Mm-hmm.
I had lost a lot of money in my business. I'm talking about 25 or so years ago, many years ago. So I was in Kilifi,
Mm-hmm.
and I had all these things going on in my head.
Okay.
So I began to develop training curriculum for companies and leadership programs.
Okay.
I would work for 12 hours. That was a day I worked for 18 hours. My wife is saying, what's wrong with you? What are you doing? I said, I'm preparing training programs. She said, for who? I said, for companies. She said, did anybody give you a contract? I said, no, but they are coming. My wife said, there's a thin line between genius and insanity, and I don't know which side you are on, you know? But I kept at it.
Yeah.
You see, if you cannot be consistent when nobody sees, then nobody will ever see you.
Mm-hmm.
All right?
Mm-hmm.
So I kept developing the curriculum. I kept doing it over and over and over. Then one day, I was so poor, the poor called me poor at that point. I could not afford, I could not pay attention. So there was a cyber cafe in Kilifi. It was called Kilifi Books. I would go there once a week.
Yeah.
And I'm still writing all these thoughts, all these thoughts. Then I began to send out emails. Do you know? I did that for a couple of years. Nobody saw me. But eventually, that is what led me. This, somebody in the HR fraternity saw my stuff, and they were having an HR conference and said they wanted me to be the keynote speaker. That exploded me to corporate Kenya. Then the people in the newspaper, they saw my articles and they said, we're going to give you a column. They gave me a column in the newspapers that exploded on a whole new level. Then that's how I got invited to the Kenya School of Government. And they said, what you are teaching is what we need for leadership. And that's how, boom, exploded in government. But it started. Anybody who sees me now is over 20 something years late, because the seeds for acceptance are always built in the cocoon of rejection. I've been rejected, but you continue at it. It's not working. You continue, you adjust, you keep doing it in obscurity. If you cut corners, let me tell you, the character to handle success is developed in obscurity. So you find people cut corners, boom, they appear successful, but there's no substance to hold it, you know. So that's what I would say. Just chill, chill,
Yeah.
focus, and stay there. You may say, okay, but how will I eat if I'm waiting? Very simple. Continue in that path. You know, if you need to submit yourself, what I did, after I discovered that I have missed something by not working in certain environments, I had become, people said I was successful, but you know what I did? I left and I volunteered myself to become the PA of a billionaire. I wanted to learn. How do they think? How do they? Now, I was his PA. He allowed me to stay in his house. So I was eating. But I learned the language of kings.
Okay.
I learned how to transact. I learned a lot of things, you know. And so I'm an expert when it comes to volunteering, you know. And when you volunteer, somehow God makes a way while you keep your eye on your dream.
Wow, wow, what a powerful way to wrap up this episode. That was very profound, especially what you've said about consistency, because I feel like that is one of the hardest things, especially for us young people. We are called the microwave generation. We want to do something today and we want to see the results in a month or a week's time. But I think that has really put perspective into the aspect of keeping at it day in, day out. Eventually, your efforts or the work that you've been putting out will eventually come to fruition.
Absolutely.
That was a wonderful conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on this
Thank you.
episode.
You're doing a great job. Well
Thank
done.
you. Thank you so much, Dr. Wale. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was a wrap up for season 4. Thank you so much for sticking around. I hope you've enjoyed this season. I hope you've learned something. See you on the next one. Bye.